dear. Cup of tea. Here's a cup of tea.
They want it done by the end of March.
Hey, hey. But if we can get you more bent, Mom. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, you should go down again now.
A new sequence for Isadora. Derek Renshaw dances the role of one of the most important men in Isadora's life, Paris Singer, heir to the Singer sewing machine millions.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you have rapport with a dancer, you go into the room and you say, look, this is the idea, this is the music, this is the step I want you to do, then he or she will say, because of my body, couldn't I do it, turn left or right, or put this arm up or put that, and it's a gradual process between us.
I'm only an instrument. You know, I'm just an old banjo, if you like, and he's playing the tune completely.
The spinal column of any ballet company is its choreography. Frederick Ashton and Kenneth Macmillan are really great choreographers. They have made our company really by their repertoire.
Well, you see, what I would like to do from there, Mel, you could, if he takes you in the right direction, no, don't go round, Derek, just from side to side.
The writer Gillian Freeman did the scenario for the ballet.
It's very cinematic, which is what Kenneth wanted. Scenes flow into one another. It took a lot of working out and thought, because Isadora had such a fantastically mobile, busy, passionate life.
As Macmillan rehearses, Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet rehearse in Leeds. They're on the road again with performances of John Cranko's Taming of the Shrew, based on the Shakespeare play. Michael Corder dances with Sherilyn Kennedy.
We tour between 20 and 23 weeks a year. It's a hard slog, of course it is. But there's never a feeling, really, the same old routine. Someone will be sick, and the people whose names are just in brackets on the cast list nearly always get a chance to shine. And the fact that sometimes you have to get up, and at a moment's notice, get out on that stage and do your thing without too much preparation. It is the best training in the world, in a way. Without the Grand Theatre here in Leeds, things might have been very different. It really was, during the war, you see, the stronghold of the Sadler's Wells Ballet.
The war. 1939 to 45, with the company constantly losing their men dancers to the forces. At the outset, they had to perform just to 2 pianos, and they'd lost their base at Sadler's Wells. The theatre became a refuge for bombed-out Londoners. But in every other sense, it was the war that made them, gave them a huge and new public, and made them popular entertainment. They performed all over the country, 6 nights a week and matinees, and even during air raids, to the alarm, at least, of one member of the audience.
He heard this buzz bomb start, and the orchestra going da-dee, da-da-da-da-da-da, and he was getting low in his seat, and finally he heard this bang, and all the doors flew open, and he said, oh, that was near, and the woman said, shh. That was how intense the ballet audience were.
And it was a very ideal entertainment, in a way, I think, in the war, because it didn't require great concentration.
Anything to obliterate the horrors that surrounded us. I think it took everybody into a fantastic world.
I mean, we even entertained the troops, can you imagine? Even today, that would be thought a little bit a long shot to entertain the troops with ballet, but we did.
We never knew what it was to have an empty house anywhere. Gradually, this enormous public grew.
But there might have been no public, no performances at all.
They decided at the very beginning that they were going to send us to Holland. That was before, of course, they'd got in there. So off we went for a 10 days trip to Holland, and the Germans decided to come in the middle of it.
There we were, up in this little town, a few miles from the German frontier, and as most people's memories are of the Dutch soldiers sort of going back the other way.
Well, we gave a performance, and it was very restless sort of feeling everywhere.
In the first interval, they came and said, I don't think you ought to stay after the performance for supper. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, there's been an incident on the board. It's nothing. And the next interval, they said, how quickly can you all get in the coaches? So they said, the invasion's happened. They're blowing up the bridges.
I became very quiet, and Constance used to come up and say to me, you're like Greta Garbo without her voice, because I've never said anything. I mean, that's the way it took me, the sort of the fear of it all.
The British Embassy were wonderful. They did all they could to get us out. It took about 2 days.
We spent a day in a kind of, I mean, like a country club. And there we were, and I remember there were lots of old girls there, and they were all looking for a fourth for bridge the whole time. This was all they were wearing, with the guns going in the distance and everything. And they were always looking for a fourth hand for bridge.
Suddenly the door burst open, and they said, the buses are here, women only. And Nina had said, then none of us go. She said, I'd rather take the boys and leave the women, because the boys will suffer most. So unless it's all, then we all stay. And her face at the time, I thought, well, you're a great, great woman.
But we had to leave everything behind us. And there was 7 years' work tied up there. All our famous English scores were lost. We couldn't get them out. All our scenery, all our costumes. We just got ourselves out, and what we remembered of the choreography was in our heads.
Rake's Progress, Facade, were among the ballets lost but later remembered and restaged in those war years. And there were new productions by de Valois, by Helpmann, who, with Ashton in the Air Force, began to choreograph ballets like Hamlet, Miracle in the Gaubles. And of course the favourites were there as well. Coppelia performed one night when Helpmann, who was Coppelius, hung flags out on his balcony. The year was 1945. The month was May. VE night. Victory in Europe. For part of the world, the war was over. And Coppelia danced in 1980 by Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet, 35 years later. The work of the school goes on at White Lodge and at Barron's Court.
1, 2, 3, here. Now straighten. Get the arms over the head. And just take a step forward, please. Let's take a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
If you could just use that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
The music for Isadora is by Richard Rodney Bennett, the British composer who at present lives in New York. And up to now, most of these discussions have had to be by phone.
I haven't got a pencil, I've only got a pen.
Do it.
And,
Cut. I never mind cutting, I hate adding.
2, 3, and arms to the side. Now, sit up in the backs and relax the shoulders.
pull your foot out. Does that help?
Well,
Not really. We know things.
The weekly visit to Baron's Court by the company doctor. He's a surgeon and a consultant in orthopedics.
Bring it over here. Is it always on that side? You didn't get anything at all on the right hand side?
No, I mean, the right one was worse at
Yes,
one stage.
Our profession is so risky. We have lots and lots of injuries all the time. Most of them are very minor, and you learn to live with them. But you have to take risks to be exciting on the stage.
One has the physical problems to overcome, and if they don't, if you don't overcome them in a certain amount of time, then one gets mental problems and doubts.
And you get to a point where you think, really, you are never going to get back again.
I mean, I go away. I just, if I'm injured, I just can't bear to be here.
I try to occupy my mind doing other things, but it's terribly depressing.
Yeah, you see, now, if we could have got that last one, you were just a little bit previous on the very last. You see.
So you've
Marvellous.
lost about 30 seconds.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Anything else?
Thank you.
The rest of my music you want?
No, no.
That's it.
In yet another studio, rehearsals for a revival of Ashton's Daphnis and Chloe, the music by Ravel. Marguerite Porter and Mark Silver, with two other dancers covering their roles.
Stop. Right, now, look. When you got back here, don't eat the poor girl. I mean, you're going to in a sense, but I mean, you must look a little bit more luscious than that. You're here. You're looking in the eyes like this. Not up here, otherwise nobody's going to see anything there. When we hold that, and there's a wealth of meaning in the holding here, then we start slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly, and oh, you're sold, but you're not sold until you've got to the bottom of the leg there.
Michael Soames was the first Daphnis in 1951.
I always loved doing that ballet because the music is so fantastic, and what I liked about it, although it's a mythical creature, it's a real sort of person. I mean, he is a human being, and there's certain emotions to portray there. One was able to evoke the atmosphere so much you could almost believe that it was true yourself. 2, 1, ta-ti-ka, stop, hold, Lisa, da, di-ram. That's it. Now, come on.
The 40s and the 50s. Fontaine, prima ballerina, with Soames in Ashton's Dante Sonata, with Helpman, then again with Soames.
The best years of my career, I danced with Michael Soames, and he was just superb. I mean, his presence on the stage and his whole manner and bearing.
I was the sort of dynamo that worked the lift, you know, it was unseen. She was the showcase, she was the thing that people wanted to look at. And if she looked as if she was doing it all by herself, then I was doing my job properly.
She danced for the purity of dance and the wonderful musicality. I mean, some dancers, beautiful dancers, I won't name them, but I could name several, that are not at all musical. But Margot was unbelievable. For you'd hear dee-dum-dum, and you'd think she's not going to get there, and absolutely on the note, boom.
The 40s and the 50s. These were years of growth, fast growth, and major events. In 1946, it's the company who reopened the Royal Opera House after the war. From now on, there'd be a smaller group in Sadler's Wells, but this, Covent Garden, was to be the company's main home.
It was a dance hall during the war, and that was sort of very exciting to think it was going to be an opera house full-time, which had never happened before. It was only open for seasons before the war.
I said to Ninette, we must absolutely at all costs go there.
We were all absolutely horrified at the size of the stage after the ones we've been used to.
If we'd gone back to a smaller theatre, we'd have been a smaller company. By being in a great opera house like that, the thing had to expand, had to grow. If you suddenly inherit a big house, you have to have the right furniture to go with it.
We opened with beauty. Nobody had the clothes to be very grand. I mean, they'd brought out all their old evening dresses and things, and everyone to do what they could to dress up. But I always said it was a girl that smelled strongly of mothballs, because no one had worn anything like that for so long.
Sleeping Beauty, Act 3. Fontaine, who danced that opening night, in this film partnered by David Blair. But in 1949, there'd been one of the most important steps of all, the first tour to the States.
It was the Sleeping Beauty that made us there. Sol Hurok didn't want me to take it. He only wanted me to take one act. He said America would never stand for a full-length band at that time. I said, we either take it as a whole or not at all. And of course, it was the success of the first visit.
Fontaine made such a tremendous impact on the first night of the Beauty.
And I was so stunned because I was by then totally convinced that I was going to be a disaster, and it was just so much the reverse.
I'll never forget the applause during the Aurora part at the end. It was like 5 tube trains rushing into the theatre.
It was so lovely to have so many fresh audiences to conquer all the time.
We had our own train with Sadler's Wells Valley written across it.
Which used to trundle us all the way over and all the way back and became home, rather like a circus. I used to get quite sad at leaving it. I mean, I can even remember the name of my, my sleeping coach. It was called Fort Wayne or something. I got so fond of Fort Wayne.
Dollars rolled in. They made a lot of money. In fact, we were nicknamed the Dollarinas, not the Ballerinas sometimes.
Because the American audience is tremendously responsive.
When we go to America, you just have to repeat a step twice and they're on their feet.
It really gets you going. You do the coda, brise, volley, brise, volley. They start to clap, and before you're halfway through, they're clapping, and it makes you.
I mean, it's lovely to perform.
And Frederick Ashton as an ugly sister in his ballet Cinderella, music by Prokofiev, and premiered the winter before that first American tour.
You mean Isadora, how many dancers are going to be the entire ballet? I'll find that out for you too. It'll be, you know, the majority of the company. It's a huge ballet.
Stephen Jeffries dancing the role of Isadora's Russian lover, the poet Yesenin. But for a choreographer like Macmillan, what are the things that influence his work?
I was very affected by the war. First of all, I was evacuated from the age of 11 till 14. In the meantime, my mother had died and my father. I came to London at 15. I mean, I was a youngster struggling to be an adult much before my time. I think this is reflected in the sort of people I choose to do ballets about. The situation I enjoy working at best is the individual against society, really, that has a hard time. And somehow I want ballet to be in touch more with reality.
He first had his chance to do choreography in the early 50s. He and the late John Cranko.
I was called them the Gemini because they were great friends and grew up together in the company. And it was obvious to all of us that they were the coming choreographers in the company, and that's proved.
John Cranko's Pineapple Pop, David Blair as Captain Ballet, music from the well-loved Gilbert and Sullivan operas. The 50s and the 60s. Royal visits to Covent Garden, galas for heads of state, celebrations for royal engagements. And in 1956 there'd been a royal charter. From now on they're known as Britain's Royal Ballet. And Ninette de Valois became Dame Ninette, and Ashton Sir Frederick, and director of the company when Ninette de Valois retired. And in Paris, a young man defected from Leningrad's Kirov Ballet and was to come to London and dance with the company and have his own strong influence, Rudolf Nureyev.
I still think that there isn't anyone that's coming up or I've seen anywhere that wasn't the Nureyev I saw when he first came to England. And for me, there's never been an Albert like him in Giselle. That was the first thing he danced with us.
And then he did a lot for Fontaine. I mean, he reinvigorated her for the last lap, so to speak.
Gave her an absolute lift. Yes, it was wonderful.
I mean, he showed male dancers what they could be capable of, you see.
Le Corsaire, danced and staged by Nureyev.
Bye, Cher. Oh, bloody back.
What?
Back. I've done nothing but hunt this week.
Now, arm. Now change both.
Run, run, run. Run. In. That's it. That's better. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Let's just sort Mary's feet out because she's having a hard job behind.
And other way. This way. Close up here, Simon.
And so the three parts of the company go on working. At Baron's Court, another students' class.
Da, 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 da.
At Sadler's Wells, Michael Corder, as choreographer this time, working with June Highwood and Nicholas Millington.
Yeah. When you run round, this was better, but you go past him, and look at him, but not this way, because we can't see you. 1, 2, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And Macmillan rehearses with actress Mary Miller, who plays a second Isadora in his ballet, a speaking role, though here she's put through her paces in movement. It's her first day's call.
This is another 12, you see. You've done a whole 12, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before you do your next move. It should look like one person. I am told, and I've read accounts, that Isadora in her recitals talked almost as much as she danced. So in the ballet, I have split the role of Isadora into two parts, the talking Isadora and the dancing Isadora. They're all Isadora's actual words, taken from books. And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think it will add tremendously because it will counterpoint. I mean, sometimes her memories might be very romantic, and the counterpoint of the spoken word can have quite a cynical twist to it at times.
And I think it's a marvellous idea of Kenneth to have the actress there. We are the same person. I'm just her dancing spirit.
1, 2, 3, 4.
People who are not trained as dancers, it seems to be a lot of things to learn. If I watch a pianist playing and they play it all by heart, I just don't know how on earth they're able to do it.
We keep repeating it, and after a while you get to know it inside out.
Something like Isadora to miss 2 rehearsals and then be brought into it, there's no way that you can get into the ballet until you're actually in there and you get the notator saying there's a 7, 2 8s, 3 9s and a 12.
Those are the ballets that one remembers more than 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Yes, that's true.
Because you've done it in depth.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only want them to do 6 of that. Sorry. 12.
It's Sue from the Royal Ballet Press Office. Hello. I gave you Richard Rodney Bennett's address, didn't I? And you wanted a little chat with Kenneth.
In the Crush Bar at Covent Garden, a first rehearsal of the full score for Isadora. Barry Wordsworth conducts the Opera House Orchestra. And for this, of course, Richard Rodney Bennett is over again from New York. But even at this stage, the dancers and the choreographer still have to work to a piano. Macmillan's taking his first rehearsal on the stage.
Violas, we need to split that up as well. Before 120, taken up on the C sharp, would you? Ta-ya-dee.
10 days to go to opening night, and the pressure's on. But not just because the first night is approaching.
When you're creating something, you think you've got it into your system, then you take it on stage and it all goes to pieces because you've got to get used to a new environment. Suddenly you're without mirrors. And it's really only after a run of the first sort of 4 or 5 performances that it starts to fit you like a glove.
The more you actually get on stage, the easier it feels and the less nervous you get. Everyone wants you to do it well and everything. It's just, you're so nervous you can feel the audience staring at you and people behind you staring at you as well. It's a feeling that everybody's staring you in the back of the head.
I remember the first time I went on, it was Nureyev and someone else doing Swan Lake, and I was doing a walk-on. And I felt that when I walked on that stage, that all 2,000 people were looking at me and not to Rudolph. They were. They probably were.